This is a stimulus update and daily news report. There is so much going on with stimulus news, so Chuck Schumer put out a new deadline for both the human infrastructure and physical infrastructure packages, and most Democrats are actually on board with it. Even Joe Manchin is on board with it, but someone like AOC says that she'll completely tank both of these packages if it doesn't have what she wants. One Republican, Mark Meadows, says that all the talks are going to fall apart because of this one reason. I'll play you the video clip of what he said. Also, I have a new video clip from Bernie Sanders saying exactly what is in it and what he wants from it, from both these packages. Also, we'll talk about the increase in Social Security promise that President Biden made, how California became the first funded state to give universal basic income, basically giving out $500,000 checks to people with no strings attached, and I'll answer the questions you leave for me in the comments. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend so far. If you appreciate these fact-based, fast-paced updates, hit the like button down below, and I'm giving out $200 checks to my subscribers. I'll have more details to that down in the description. So, Los Angeles County reinstates indoor mask mandate as Delta variant spreads. So, COVID cases are back on the rise. LA County is one of the first counties to reinstate a mask mandate. Bigger states and cities like New York are not putting that back into place, but will they in the future? Let me know down in the comments below. Do you believe the mask mandate will come back as COVID cases are back on the rise? Let me know your thoughts on this down in the comments below. Let's talk about what's going on with the both infrastructure packages. So Chuck Schumer drops bomb on Senate with speedy infrastructure timeline. So he put a new deadline, which is going to be for next Wednesday, July 21st, which they're saying is an ambitious timeline. But to be honest, it should have been done yesterday. It should have been done last week. So I'm not even sure if this is an ambitious timeline when this whole infrastructure thing should have been done months ago. They had a June 1st deadline of when this is supposed to be voted on. So I wouldn't say this is ambitious. I would say it's actually kind of late. But moving forward, talking about what's going on with infrastructure, when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. So funding for Biden's infrastructure plan is still up in the air ahead of crucial tests. So we don't know how it's going to be paid for, which is one of the biggest issues of why it never happened to begin with. Republicans and Democrats could not agree how they were going to pay for these trillions of dollars that's going to go for infrastructure. So experts say that the current list of funding sources for $579 billion of new spending relies on questionable math from both sides. They don't know if it's going to be user fees, higher taxes. Both of those are red lines for both sides. Now, someone like Joe Manchin signals that he'll be a team player on the spending deal. Both of them, actually, both the bipartisan infrastructure and the reconciliation bill, which is the human infrastructure. So surprisingly, Joe Manchin is on board with a few stipulations. He wants to know how it's going to be paid for in the right way, and he wants to know what's in it. So Joe Manchin says he still doesn't know what's in it. We don't know what's in it. I guess only a select few people know what's in it. And someone like AOC says that progressives will tank the infrastructure bill without bold climate change provisions. So if it doesn't have bold climate change provisions, the progressives, which is over 100 members, could actually not vote for it and say that there's not going to be any human infrastructure with the $3.5 trillion or the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure. So we're going to start to see a lot more politicians make demands, make requests saying, I'm not voting for it unless it has blank. So a lot of people could hold power in this situation. Someone like Mark Meadows, who's a Republican, you may know him as the former chief of staff to former President Trump. He was part of the stimulus negotiations last year. So Mark Meadows says that infrastructure deal will fall apart. Talking about Biden and the push for $3.5 trillion spending plan, here is Mark Meadows talking more about why he thinks it's all going to fall apart and not happen at all.
Well, here's the interesting thing. AOC and their progressive caucus has never stopped anything in Washington, D.C. They talk a lot, but they actually don't stop anything. I've been somebody, when I was a member of Congress, as you know, we used the leverage of a small caucus to make sure that we kept fiscal restraint and fiscal accountability there. I don't see it working the other way. I can tell you a lot of those negotiations happening just 2 blocks from where I am right now will fall apart. and they need to fall apart. We do not need additional federal spending. We don't need $3.5 trillion. We don't even need $1 trillion of the way that they're going to try to spend it, because it will not hit the economy. It's up in the big cities. So if you're a rural senator like Manchin and Sinema, that money actually won't get to the roads and infrastructure that we're talking about. So here's what we need to do. We need to make sure that the American people actually go back to work. We got to quit paying them for staying at home. Manufacturing is having a hard time getting workers. I mean, the people that are tuned in right now, they know how hard it is to find workers. And yet what we do is we continue to overstimulate the economy. It will create inflation long term. Hopefully what we see with these retail sales is it's pent-up demand based on an economy that started with Steven Mnuchin and President Trump's decision almost a year ago, that we will start to see a supply chain and workers come back to work, and we pay them for doing that.
So what do you think about what Mark Meadows said? Do you agree, disagree? Will the talks completely fall apart? Will Congress just give up again and not get something accomplished? Let me know your thoughts on this down in the comments below. So he mentioned how workers need to get back to work. Speaking of unemployment, workers plan to sue Florida for ending unemployment early, part of a growing movement. So Florida is the latest state, one of 6 states so far. We have Ohio, Maryland, Indiana, Texas, Oklahoma, now Florida, and now speaking of Indiana, Indiana resumes federal unemployment benefits after an entire month of not having it. They had the lawsuit, Indiana, or the workers won, or the unemployed workers won, and now the $300 per week unemployment boost is reinstated back in Indiana. Now, when it comes to unemployment in general, it's going to end September 6th. The $300 federal unemployment boost still going on statewide, but the whole program is ending, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be renewed after that. So now President Biden and Bernie Sanders, once rivals, are now partners in power. So it seems that Bernie Sanders and President Biden have agreed on almost everything, no matter how progressive it is. With Bernie Sanders, President Biden has agreed with most of it. Here's Bernie Sanders talking more about what's in this infrastructure package and how it's going to move forward.
We're going to get this done. We are getting this done. Thank you.
President Biden up on Capitol Hill today telling Democratic senators, you just heard him say it, we're going to get this done, after lawmakers announced the deal on a $3.5 trillion spending package. Independent Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont is joining us. He's the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. So as you just heard, and as you would know a lot better than I do, this is what, some $2.5 trillion less than you and many of your fellow progressives initially wanted. What do you say to those fellow progressives who feel that maybe you gave in too easily right now?
Well, what I would say is, Wolf, number one, we are in fact looking at the most consequential piece of legislation for working families since the Great Depression. So this is a very big, big deal, which is going to transform the lives of many millions of Americans. Second of all, what I would simply say is I wish, that the rest of the Senate held my political views, but they don't. As I think Ryan mentioned, Caitlin mentioned, there are 50 of us in the Senate, some more conservative than others, and we have to reach an agreement. But essentially, what the framework of this bill is about is, number one, telling the wealthiest people and the largest corporations, many of whom who have avoided paying their fair share of taxes, those days are over. They're going to start paying their fair share of taxes. Second,
go ahead, make your second point.
Second of all, working families in this country, while the rich are getting much richer, working families are struggling. They can't afford health care, they can't afford child care, they can't afford to send their kids to college, they can't afford home health care for their parents. And we are going to, in a very significant way, address many of these crises that working families are facing. And thirdly, finally, the United States will lead the world in dealing with enormous threat to our country and the planet in terms of climate change. And when we do all of these things, we're going to create many, many millions of good-paying jobs, which we desperately need.
Hovering over all of this right now is the fear of inflation. As you well know, the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell today addressed deep concerns about high inflation readings going on right now. Inflation is a really serious problem, not so much for the rich, but for the middle class and the poor. If gasoline costs $4 a gallon or $5 a gallon, rich people don't care, but middle class people do care. How concerned are you right now, Senator, about inflation?
Well, I am concerned about inflation, among many other things. As I think you know, this bill, this $3.5 trillion, and then there's another $600 billion in a so-called bipartisan infrastructure bill, will pay for itself. It'll be paid for in a variety of ways, but significantly by higher taxes on the wealthy and large corporations. So that should not add to the inflation concerns.
Because the inflation problem potentially is a huge problem. You and I remember the Jimmy Carter administration. He lost his bid for his reelection as president of the United States, in part because of the Iran hostage crisis, but also because inflation, high interest rates were really devastating the U.S. at that time.
Inflation is a real concern. But what we should also be concerned about is that real inflation accounted for wages for many, many workers in this country has not gone up for almost 50 years. People are paying much more than they can afford for child care, for college, for health care, and this legislation begins to address those concerns.
All right, Senator, thank you very, very much. We obviously will continue this conversation with you.
What do you think about what Bernie Sanders said? Do you agree, disagree? Let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments below. So child tax credits have been going out this past week for direct deposit. Paper checks are probably going to be received probably next week or the week after that, and then on a monthly basis until the end of the year. Now, that's great for all the people who are getting child tax credits, who have kids, families, but what about the people who don't have kids? What about people who are on disability, seniors, veterans, single workers, people whose kids have left the house? Why aren't they getting any stimulus aid as well? And I think it's really shameful. I think that part of our society, our most vulnerable, our older society who have dedicated decades of their life contributing to the economy, why aren't they getting help? They should get help. So talking about the increase for Social Security, the Democratic plan to smash poverty for seniors and people with disabilities. So this is the coming battle to expand supplemental Social Security income. So this has been spoken about in the past, but yet there has been no action on it. So back in May of 2020, late May 2020, Joe Biden announced his campaign's disability policy platform, which included major expansions of SSI benefits. The plan set the maximum benefit at 100% of the poverty line, a 35% increase in benefits over the status quo. The proposal would also eliminate marriage penalty and also a few other benefits as well. So he said that back in May of 2020. Now the maximum SSI benefit for an individual is $9,530 per year. The poverty line is $12,880 per year. Now, meaning that people on SSI are living 3/4 of the poverty line. They're living below the poverty line. So they want to increase that, so it could be a potential $279 per month increase there. Still haven't heard anything about it. A lot of politicians have said that they want to have it, reintroduce it, but yet no action has been taken. It's really up to Congress to finally do something about this. Next, let's talk about other monthly checks. So in California approves $35 million plan for nation's first state-funded guaranteed income program. So guaranteed basic income, or our universal basic income, which is UBI, basically you're getting checks for not doing anything. So the way it voted was 36-0 in the Senate, 64-0 in the Assembly, and this is actually voted in place. So it's going to go to a lot of different local governments and organizations, and they'll apply the money for however they want for the program. So this is across the entire state, going to different cities, different counties, different towns, and it's up to the lawmakers of how much they want to pay for the monthly payments. Generally, it's going to be between $500 and $1,000 per month for all these programs, for all these people, and they don't have to do anything for it. There's no strings attached. They just get this money. It's part of a universal basic income program. Let me know your thoughts on this down in the comments below. Do you think more states should do this? Is this a good idea? Is this going to help out our economy and our country, or not? The opposite side of it. So basically, this is part of a bigger movement too. This has actually happened across other cities across the country. So $500 payments as part of an experimental universal basic income program tested in upstate New York. So that's going to be $500 per month for people in New York. Also Sacramento, separate of this California $35 million plan. So guaranteed income in Sacramento, 100 families are receiving $300 no string payment. So basically they pick 100 families and they get $300 per month. They don't have to pay it back. They don't have to do anything. It's not like unemployment. It's not like Social Security or welfare or anything like that. They just get this money and they're doing experiments to see how people react to it. So this is part of also a bigger program called Mayors for Guaranteed Income. These are all the different cities, as you can see on here, that are participating in these programs, that are in the process of getting the money out or already have these programs in place of either $500 or $1,000 per month. So this is a growing movement. This could help more people that are struggling with poverty, and it could be a big thing. I'll keep you updated on this. Next, let's talk about the eviction moratorium. So nobody knows how big this volume is. Courts prepare for the end of the eviction moratorium. So this is actually going to be really big. I'm going to talk about mortgage assistance and rental assistance in a moment. But first, when it comes to the eviction moratorium, it's expiring at the end of the month. It's been extended multiple times over the past year and a half maybe, actually. And so at this point, it's going to end. We don't know what's going to happen, how many evictions are going to happen, how this is going to affect the economy, the housing market, all these poor families that are going to be left in the streets or have to go to homeless shelters. So this is going to be a really bad situation. In terms of rental assistance, if you need any of that, you could go to the Treasury website and you could look according to your state. So if you just click your state here, like I'll click California, has it in each of these counties, different cities, city of Los Angeles, all that. You could find rental assistance that way and apply. In terms of mortgage assistance, if you go to ncsha.org, you could click, and you have to go to a housing agency of your state and then apply that way for the mortgage assistance. There's $10 billion available for mortgage assistance, $45 billion available for rental assistance. Next, I'm going to answer the questions you leave for me in the comments. So Janine Davis asks this question a few times. So my son turned 18 in April this year. Does he qualify for the child tax credit? So I actually looked this up. I found it right here. So the IRS will use 2019 or 2020 returns to determine how much money is sent, but will reconcile the credit based on the age of children on January 1st of 2022. So if you have any kids, Janine, or anyone else has any kids turning 18 in the year of 2021, you won't be eligible for that child tax credit. It's the age of your child on January 1st of 2022. If they're 17 on January 1st, then yes. If they're 18, then no on January 1st of 2022, because it's an advanced child tax credit. Harry Parsons asks, what about veterans? Yeah, veterans, unfortunately, once again, getting screwed. They were late on the stimulus checks to veterans, late with everything with veterans, and there just isn't enough stimulus aid for veterans coming out, at least that we know of. We don't know the full details yet. Next question. So Pamela Williams says, the child tax credit portal says that I'm eligible, but no payment has been processed. What should I do? Should I call? So I guess you would have to see if did you file your taxes in 2019, 2020? It could be a paper check that's on the way to you. It's still very soon. It's only the 17th of July, so I would wait another week before any action would need to be taken. And that is all the stimulus news I have for you today. To hopefully cheer you up a bit, here's my daughter Bella's tip of the day.
Hi guys, this is Bella. This is the tip of the day. I tell you the one thing that you should do. When you feel something and you don't really feel good, then be grateful what you have. Be thankful. Because the next day it might not be there. So, that's what I wanted to say. True or false? Bye.
So I forgot to mention this past week, but my daughter Bella actually did wakeboarding camp this past week. So wakeboarding is where you're holding onto a cable, like a like kind of like with water skiing, only with a board, and she was doing wakeboarding, which was pretty cool. I didn't get to see it because it happened during the day, and so she was I didn't get to watch her do it. I would just pick her up afterwards. And my daughter Kalea, 3 years old, actually went to camp for the first time because Bella was going to camp and she wanted to go to camp as well. So it was the very first time she went to camp, which was pretty cool. And my daughter Kalea is fully potty trained, so she was one of the only 3-year-olds who was able to go to camp in that group. She's actually been fully potty trained for over a year now. We started very early. Anyways, if you want to get the $200 checks, if you want to win that, I'll have details to that down in the description below. And if you want to check out any of my other videos, you could click up here or this link down over here, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, be safe. Thank you for watching.